It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced, white-knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs. Get over to Joe's today. Do yourself a little fast-paced racing. After you're done with that, you can head over to Quaker Steak and Lube and watch the Cobalt Tools 400 at Las Vegas. Green flag set to wave at about 2:30. Coverage on Fox and PRN kicks off at about 2 p.m. Picks for today's fantasy contest, the Pick'ems contest presented by Rick Haven Ridge of Wealth Partners. All the picks are due by 2:30 today. Do not delay. Get your picks in on time.
First race of two for Atlanta this year.
Yeah, well, just one.
For Las Vegas, I mean.
Well, that's next year. Vegas.
They don't get the two this year. They even though they could. They very well could. The guy that owns both tracks is the one switching the race, so nobody's getting hurt.
The ticket owners that hold the tickets for the fall New Hampshire race would be pretty upset. Those season tickets holder and
money back, send it back.
Well, so let's talk about. The only time I liked it is when Tony won. I thought it's not a bad track. It's not the greatest.
Take the other New Hampshire race and give it to Watkins Glen.
Yeah, there we go. Put it into the chase. Excuse me, the playoffs. Oh, there's another dollar in the cuss jar.
Yeah, I'm gonna eat good at the end of the year.
I've got a couple of cuss jars going this year. Chase versus playoff, Sprint Cup versus Monster Energy Cup. What's the other one?
Just say Cup. You don't have to worry about the rest. I've been doing that since they took the name Winston from in front of it.
That's true. That's a good thing. But and that money will come out at the Homestead party, and we'll buy some beers or buy some dinner or whatever we'll do with it.
I'm out. You're buying beer. I'm out.
Lord knows I don't need any more beer, so maybe we'll just use it towards food.
Yeah, you just had your vacation. How was the vacation?
Oh my God, I got to tell you. Of all the places I've ever traveled, I think Austin has the nicest people. It's completely separate from the rest of Texas. There's very little Southern accents. They're all 20, 30, 40-year-old people. There's some older age and younger, but, for the most part, it's a younger city, and they're all very courteous. They're all really happy. They're all really nice. We had a great time. Fantastic time.
Did you get to look out the plane window and see TMS or not?
No, we didn't. We missed it. Flew into Dallas, did not see TMS, but in Austin, and we got to see the University of Texas. And as a not even a Nebraska fan, but I threw something at the stadium just for you. So I did that just for you.
Well, going in and out of Dallas, you at least should have been able to look over to the west and seen the racetrack. I know I did the only time I flew to Dallas.
I was all sorts of discombobulated. It was pretty foggy when we came in, and it was raining.
Foggy in your head or outside the plane?
Both. We could not see the sun, so I couldn't get my bearings very well. So no, and not only that, but from the fog and the rain in Dallas and in Austin, we really weren't able to see much more than a couple of miles. So, But I unfortunately was out walking around in a cave while NASCAR was turning laps at Atlanta, so I didn't get to see the race. But I've watched a couple of race recaps, and it looks like Harvick coughed one up.
Well, at first I thought it figured because I was going to pick him in the Pick'ems contest, and as a matter of fact, I did pick him, and then I went back and changed my pick.
Oh, really?
So I was jumping up and down and clapping when it happened. But I just thought he's going to be on the pole. He's going to run away and lead a bunch of laps like he does a lot of times, like 5 out of the last 6 races there.
Yeah.
And not one. And it's exactly what happened. But he took ownership. He doesn't yell at himself quite like he yells at his crew when they screw something up.
Of course.
But no, he dominated, not quite as bad as what Martin Truex dominated in the 600 last year, but pretty close. And after this race, I really was sitting on the fence still with the segments after Daytona. After this race, I don't like them.
Okay. Well, again, remember, we got to reserve judgment. Because,
I know, we need a few more races.
Right.
But the flow of the race was destroyed by those 2 stops. When he made his penalty, there's a chance he might have been the only car on the lead lap.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when they started that, well, and actually it wouldn't have been like that because there'd been a few penalties or a few pit stops and a few cautions right there at the end of the race, so there would have been a few guys getting laps back. But when they got through the second caution, or finished the second segment, they had, I believe it was just somebody got the waiver, or somebody got the lucky dog, and it was 13 cars at that point, I think, on the lead lap. Casey Kane ran around 15th, 16th all day and was a lap down.
Yeah.
And then that series yellows at the end, and he got his lap back and ended up with a fifth-place finish. He ran real well, real well. You had guys like Dale Earnhardt, who everybody thought was going to be bad or going to be good down there, and he went to the back and stayed back there.
Well, did I see something on a highlight that he blew a tire?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's another guy that had a big run that ended up with a tire issue after a little rubbing his racing part was Clint Boyer. Looked real good in the 14. Was up at third place at one point. And then on one of those restarts, he got stuck in that high line, which just does not move on the restarts on that track. Got shuffled back, and Eric Jones tried to squeeze in and make it 3 wide, and Clint bounced off the wall and then off Eric Jones and ended with a cut tire, and then bounced off the wall hard, but was able to stay on the lead lap. So
looks like Larson, very strong, late in the race, had a chance to win that race, but just couldn't hold off Keselowski.
Yeah, he just, like he said, he goes, my car just wasn't as good as his. And the fact that, like the announcer said, like Jeff Gordon said, he said, Brad's going to go wherever he's not. Kyle ran high in 1 and 2 and low in 3 and 4 the whole race. Then at the end, he tried to protect the bottom, so he went low in 1 and 2, and Brad went high and gained a bunch of ground. So the next lap, Kyle went high and had a kind of a lousy lap.
Yeah.
And Brad went low and got by him, and that's all it wrote.
See, it's just tough for a guy like Kyle Larson, because going up against somebody like Brad Keselowski, Brad's in the best position because he says, okay, you're going to go high. I know exactly how to set my car up, when to let off the throttle, when to lay into the brake, when to do this to go low. Oh, you're going to go low. Well, I know how to prepare my car for that. Kyle doesn't know how to do that. And it's really tough, even as the leader, because you have to commit to something, and then you have to stick with it regardless. You can't be switching your line around, because somebody that's younger like Kyle, it's going to screw up his next set of corners. And so that's a tough position for Kyle to be in.
Well, and even Harvick one time, had his left tires, halfway below the yellow line the whole race. He was on the bottom. He was on a rail. No stopping him. But it's like he went to experiment when he had a little bit of a lead. I think it was the start of the second segment. And he decided to try high in 1 and 2, and he went into 1 and 2 high, and all of a sudden you hear the announcer goes, oh, something's wrong with Harvick, and they flash the camera to him, and he's about an inch from the wall going through turn 2, and then they went back and showed the replay, and he did lose it a little bit, but he was going to take a high run through 1 and 2, and the next line he was right back on the bottom and tearing him up.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
well, it's a good place to do that.
He was the best car, no doubt.
What happened with Hamlin? Looks like official race report says he lost a rear end.
Yeah, he lost a hub because they interviewed him in the garage. He was one that went into the garage and came back out, and I don't remember. He was 10, 12 laps down, something like that, I think. But, yeah, it was a hub that went out on his in the back. Okay. And so he was one of the mechanical things where you could go in the garage without body damage and come back out. But they interviewed him in the garage, and he said, yeah, we've lost a hub.
Okay.
And I'm trying to think of who was it. One of the announcers, I don't remember if it was one of the announcers' kid, Mike Joy's kid, I think, was having a viewing party back home. And he texted his dad and said, Dad, how come Hamlin gets to come back out?
Some of the rule changes in the offseason are going to throw people for a loop. But,
if you're not really, elbows deep in the sport, it's going to.
And by the way, during race day, if you guys have any questions, you're welcome to message the Front Stretch. If I don't know the answer to it, I'll message over to Dirk. He'll probably know the answer to it. We'll be glad to help you guys out. Looks like Dale Earnhardt Jr. finished 5 laps down in 30th. A.J. Allmendinger 26th. But bad day for him. He only gained 11 points, but he was nailed with a hard penalty after that race. And this was a safety issue thing. This wasn't one of those technical, he was cheating. They had 3 lug nuts that was missing. It's a mandatory level 1 penalty, and his crew chief gets the next 3 weeks off.
Yeah, I mean, especially it's a super safety deal if the 3 were off of 1 wheel.
Yeah.
They don't tell you that part.
That's true.
It was a wonder they didn't catch that in the trailer, though, but he was in the back of the pack, and they were probably just looking at the front of the pack. So I can see, they probably just went through all the lead lap cars there towards the end.
Yeah.
But he was a couple laps down. Yeah, he struggled all day. And, it was Brad Keselowski ended up winning the race, had to come back for a lug nut. Lug nut on the left rear. And it's like 58 laps to go. something like that. And when his crew chief apologized, he just steadied back. What was his quote was, "We win together."
Yeah, good. That's good. Good.
That's
good
get
attitude.
All upset,
$65,000 fine for crew chief Randall Burnett. Let's see. AJ lost 35 driver points and 35 owner points. That is a big hit if anybody took AJ Allmendinger for the race.
Well, that's a negative for the race.
Absolutely.
Because he only probably earned
11 points.
I was going to say 11 or 12 points.
According to the rule sheet, he got 11 points off that finish. But your top finishers, Brad Keselowski, 53 points on the day. He finished second in Stage 1, seventh in Stage 2, and by winning the race, he upped his points to 53. Kyle Larson finished second. Matt Kenseth, Casey Kane, Chase Elliott, top 5. Joey Logano, Kurt Busch, Martin Truex Jr., Kevin Harvick, and Jamie McMurray, 9th. But here's the good news for Harvick. Yes, he finished 9th. Yes, that's a bitter pill to take. But he finished second overall in the points that day.
With
because
the 2 stage wins.
Brad Keselowski had 53. Kevin Harvick had 48. Excuse me, he would have finished third as Chase Elliott had 49 points. He had a third-place Stage 1 finish, a second-place Stage 2 finish, and then finished fourth on the day. All right, so that's going to do it for turn number 1. Still to come, turn number 2. Jimmy Small from Iowa Speedway will call in and talk to us about the 2017 season. Turn 3, Kris Krug, announcer at Knoxville Raceway, will preview the 2017 season. And then we will preview Las Vegas. And if there's time left, we'll talk about a couple of the news stories that have been circulating around the news headlines for NASCAR. We'll be back in turn number 2 to talk with Jimmy Small from Iowa Speedway here on the Front Stretch.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the Front Stretch, heading into turn number 2, and it's time to sit down with one of our favorite presidents. It's our home away from home, the perfect bridge between a dirt track and an asphalt NASCAR track, and we're talking about the 7/8 mile track down in Newton, Iowa Speedway, and on the phone with us, Jimmy Small. How you doing, sir?
Good. How about yourself?
We are enjoying another. What's it going to be like tomorrow for the weather in the Midwest? You know
Calm
exactly.
before the storm.
Yeah, you know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's been an interesting winter. Certainly better than my welcome winter, as I call it. 13, 14, one of my first year out here. I think we set records here in Iowa for lowest temperatures. I think they even shut down schools just based on the temperatures. So I'll take anything over that. And when we get 70 degrees, we're out there working on the track, and when we're not, we've got plenty else to do in the office.
You know, I kind of wonder if I was in your shoes and I got to be track president and I'm seeing the weather forecast is sub-zeros in Iowa, I'm thinking, maybe I'll go down to Phoenix and see how they run things at PI at Phoenix International Raceway, or maybe I'll go to Texas and see how they run things.
I do. I have the benefit of every November around Thanksgiving, I get a chance to go to Miami for the championship weekend, so I get a nice tan there, and then I keep it going when I go to Daytona for the beginning of the year. So those are my 2 kind of annual trips. And you just hold on. Hope you can hold on to that warmth and that tan, so you don't get sunburnt. For the 2 months that we've got nice weather out here in Iowa each year.
You guys have made a couple of announcements. You could tell race season is back because I'm starting to get emails again from Edward, and you guys are making official announcements about your race dates and your season tickets on sale. And the big one you guys announced last week or about a week and a half ago was the NAPA Auto Parts concert series. One thing I absolutely love you guys do is the concerts that go along with the racing action, and tickets into the race get you into the concert after the race. Talk a little bit about putting that together and how far you guys have come in that whole series.
Sure. 2015 was kind of our getting back to our roots. It was tradition started back at the beginning of the racetrack. We're only about 11 years old, going on 12. And we used to have some pretty big names like, Blake Shelton before he became a superstar, Kelly Pickler, and a few others came through the racetrack. And, when we came in, we're really focused on fan experience as a NASCAR-owned and operated track, and we want to be the best in the industry, and we really rely on our fans to give us that feedback. And so going through my first season in 2014, we heard that loud and clear from our fans, from the media, from everyone else, sponsors included, that the concert series was something that they really enjoyed and would like to see return to the Speedway. So now in our third year with the NAPA Auto Parts Concert Series at the Port Party Pavilion there in the concourse, we've got a heck of a lineup, certainly the best one we've had of the last 3 years. And something else I didn't mention, when I first got here, I couldn't believe we had a permanent stage located right there in the concourse. I don't know of another track that has that. So we certainly want to use that as often as possible. We've got a big lineup. I don't know if you want me to get into that right now, but happy to go through that in each weekend.
Absolutely. Let's hit it. The NAPA Auto Parts Series kicks off Friday, June 23rd for the Camp and Roll Truck Series, Iowa 200. Who's coming to play that night?
Easton Corbin. Pretty big fan favorite here in Iowa. We're really excited to have him to kick off our wide opening weekend, as we call it, June 23rd and 24th. I like to say that the artist keeps the stage warm in between the races and really adds to the atmosphere when the sun goes down and the race cars run out of fuel, I guess you could say.
And then second weekend, it's you guys have dubbed it the Wonderful Weekend, and that's a little bit of a pun on one of my favorite bands, Everclear, the grunge punk band.
Yeah, one of my favorites too. I'm a kind of a 90s music junkie, especially on the alternative rock side. So Everclear was one of my favorite bands growing up, still listen to them to this day. So the minute I saw them available, we had to get them on the schedule. So they'll play Saturday night after the ARCA race on July 8th. And they've got, 4 or 5 big hits that even if you're not, a fan like I am or you are, you'll definitely recognize their songs played to this day. I think that's certainly going to be my favorite. I'll probably be in the front row. I might have to sneak out of victory lane a little early that night.
And then after the Xfinity Series, the U.S. Cellular 250 on July 29th, the post-race party is on the front stretch, and fans can actually still feel the warm track surface.
Oh, yeah.
That's
so
Friday
night of that weekend, we'll have Grand Funk Railroad play as
Now
part of
you're
the
talking.
NAPA Auto Parts Concert Series. So, we like to mix up the genres and have a variety for all of our different fans and to attract new fans to the racetrack each weekend. And so in between the K&N Pro Series race that night and the U.S. Cellular 250 the next afternoon, we'll have that concert. And then, like you said, the post-race party is our end-of-season party. We blow it out. We invite all the fans down on the front stretch. It's still warm, and it's been a big hit with not just our fans, but the drivers and the rest of the industry. They all love coming out, talking to fans, hanging out with them, and really just celebrating another I'll use the word wonderful again here, season for 2017.
Yeah, that Grand Funk Railroad, I see that they're now a 5-piece band. That must be because they're all so old. They used to be a trio when I first saw them in the very early 70s. Before they'd even done an American band, I saw them here in Omaha.
Yeah, getting up there in age and that arthritis kicks in, and you may need an extra hand or two on a number of the instruments.
Your race schedule for this year kicks off June 23rd with the NASCAR Camp and Roll Truck Series Iowa 200. 200-lap race. Stage 1 is set to end at lap 60 and Stage 2 at lap 120. The action's pretty ramped up as it is at Iowa Speedway because there's really no place that a leader can run away and hide. They get too far ahead, you're going to start dealing with lap traffic. These the stage racing, what's the anticipation level for you guys at Iowa?
Well, we're excited about it. It's something I've hoped for since I started the NASCAR about 9 years ago, and hearing rumors and things as I've worked my way up through the company. So I'm really happy to finally see this actually happen. And the first 2 weekends have been interesting in Daytona and Atlanta. We'll see how it goes in Las Vegas. But, the action is certainly ramped up. There's a lot more wrecks. Drivers are working harder during the race, not just sitting in third or fourth place, not just sitting in even 11th or 12th. And we saw Austin Dillon last week at the end of Stage 1, really putting it on the line just to get an extra point for the first segment. So I think we'll continue to see that and see it develop. So I'm also glad that we don't kick off our season until the middle of June, because by that point, I think the drivers and teams will settle down and but also understand the ramifications of going for certain positions, and we'll also be creeping up on the playoffs. So they'll be, really, champing at the bit to get some extra points to make sure they're, sitting right for the playoffs.
With NASCAR's heads up or NASCAR's change on the Cup drivers dropping down to the Xfinity Series, do you have a heads up yet on who's going to be showing up to run the race out of the Cup Series?
We don't. We've had a few questions from fans, as we always do, and we don't at this point. But we'll see. We'll keep the fans updated. It's something that we obviously look for as a staff and as race fans ourselves, and hope we can get them out there or out here. They always add a good mix. They're also a measuring stick. I like to point that out too, for the young drivers that have come up. And so when a Brad Keselowski or a Kyle Busch or Joey Logano races in the Xfinity Series or even in the Camping World Truck Series, it's really fun to watch how the young drivers, the ones with so much talent and their career ahead of them, see how they stack up with some of the best in our sport.
So you kick off your schedule Friday, June 23rd with the Camping World Truck Series, Iowa 250, and then you have the Xfinity Series the next day. That's going to be a good time to grab your 2-day passes if you don't have season tickets, because you can save a little bit of money, and what a great time over at Iowa Speedway.
Yeah, that's a fan favorite since we instituted it last year. We're glad we're going to be focusing on that moving forward, combining those two events, and weekend ticket sales are probably they're definitely our biggest of the season for that event weekend. But our second event weekend with ARCA on July 8th and IndyCar on July 9th, Saturday, Sunday show, also includes the Indy Lights and USF 2000, which will be the first time they've been back here in at least my time, so it's been a few years. You get 4 races that weekend, including 3 on Sunday, so the value there is incredible and also a pretty big favorite for our fans.
You mentioned the July 8th and 9th event, that Verizon IndyCar Series race, one of my absolute favorites. Can we find a way to slow down Joseph Newgarden for this year's race?
We'll see. You know what? I enjoy good racing, and I've seen really good racing with IndyCar during the Iowa Corn 300 out here. But that was really a pleasure to watch him set the record for most laps led. I doubt that will ever be broken unless it's broken at our track. And to do it just a few weeks after breaking his wrist and clavicle or something like that, he was in rough shape, and I didn't think he would race, let alone race and then dominate and set records. So that was an incredible feat, and really proud of him, and looking forward to seeing him try to defend it this year in a Penske car.
Your next race weekend, Friday, July 28th, featuring the K&N Pro Series. Then July 29th, the next Saturday, the NASCAR Xfinity Series returns for yet another race, another 2-day weekend featuring NASCAR and a lot of great talent. Usually that July 29th race is a race that Cup Series guys don't come down to. Maybe you'll get one, but for the most part, I've noticed that that's the race that they miss out on. They'll come and tune you guys up on June 24th, but I do like that July 29th Xfinity only, because we've seen some really great Xfinity races with those regulars battling hard.
We have, and the interesting thing to watch this year, and something to point out, is that will not be a night race this year. We worked with NASCAR and NBC to make it an afternoon race. We know our fans love it under lights, and so do we. But NBC loves the racing in Iowa so much that they wanted to put that race on their network. So that race will be one of the few races for the entire year for all 3 national series that are broadcast on NBC. That about triples our viewership for that race and gets more exposure for the type of racing we have at Iowa Speedway. So really excited about that, and we'll see what that may bring about as far as Cup drivers to our track, because it would be an afternoon race. They might be able to sneak out and sneak back over to their Cup race the next day.
You said that's the July 29th race?
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's I was going to say that would triple your viewership, or maybe even quadruple it with the day race, because all the local tracks, a lot of the dirt tracks there in Iowa, run that Saturday night show, and people will be able to watch your race and then head out to the regular Saturday night.
Exactly. Exactly.
Season tickets are available at iowaspeedway.com. Get them in advance. Get them as fast as you can because it's a fun time. I almost guarantee you're going to love it. We have one fan that finally took his dad over to Iowa Speedway last year, and they are forever season passes holders, as they have said to me numerous times since that race. Not only is the staff friendly, but there's plenty to do outside of the racing, and then, of course, you have the racing and the concerts afterwards. Jimmy, what else have you guys got up your sleeves before the 2017 season kicks off and the race weekends are here?
Something we introduced this year as part of a NASCAR initiative across the entire country is a youth ticket initiative. So we'll be allowing fans, children, so our fans that are under the age of 12 to come to any of our races at no cost, as long as you're coming with a parent or a legal guardian that has a ticket for admission. So looking to, really be as hospitable as we can to families as we always have, but, adding to that and making it, more economical for families and, getting as many of them out here as possible. So that'll be really fun to watch, seeing more youth come out. We've got a lot going on in the concourse, including some of the investments we've made on the youth, marketing and education side. So fans will see some really fun interactive elements that they haven't seen at our racetrack before in the concourse, so they can come in early, during the race, before the race, after the race, and check those out and have fun with their friends and family. I guess the only other thing to point out would be the Hot Rod Power Tour will be back at Iowa Speedway for the first time, in probably 4 or 5 years at Iowa Speedway on Sunday, June 11th. So that'll kick off our event season here, and Hot Rod Power Tour is expecting about 4,000 show cars to show up. I don't know where we're going to park all those cars, but we're going to have a full house full of hot rods and classic cars as they go through their tour. So that'll be a really fun show for any motorsports or car fans out there.
A lot of great things going on over there at Iowa Speedway. We can't wait to see you guys June 23rd, 24th for the kickoff of the race weekend. And hopefully we have some big announcements coming as we are working with some teams to do the Crewman for a Day over at Iowa Speedway. So hopefully we can get that kicked off with you, and hopefully maybe the fans can come and meet you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Jimmy, always do appreciate the time.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, we're Dirk, you were kind of hitting to it there off the mic a little bit. The Crewman for a Day contest, we were working feverishly to get that going at both Kansas and Iowa Speedway. I've emailed out, before I went on vacation, I emailed out to a couple of teams to see if they'd be available to help us out with that. And hopefully, I think Xfinity has a break on their schedule coming up in a couple of weeks. I think then I'll start hearing back from them. But hopefully we can get that scheduled for either the June 24th Xfinity race or the July 29th Xfinity race. But we'll do a 5-week contest on that. Back to Jimmy Small. I always do appreciate Jimmy joining us. He's so nice to talk with us and does a great job explaining everything. But
he also treats us so great when we're there.
What an action-packed weekend. I mean, it's really their focus. I really respect when organizations and teams do this, that they focus a lot on everything but the race. Because as a track, there's not a lot they have to do for the race.
Well, so they know people are going to come tailgate.
Yep.
They know you don't just leave and drive right out to the interstate, so a lot of the people are going to sit there and have a cocktail or two afterwards. Thus the concerts came about.
Right.
I mean, they're thinking of the fan.
Mm-hmm. And there's a lot to do if to just show up 2 hours before the race and to leave right after. You're cutting yourself so short. I mean, I now own a 2016 Chevy Colorado because of going to Iowa Speedway and walking around ahead of time. I found the display for the diesel version of the 2016 Colorado. I absolutely fell in love with it, and that was when I started putting money away to save and buy this one that I have. And I wouldn't have done that had I not been walking around the fan course and seeing everything that there is to see, the merchandise sales, the carnival food that's there, the extra food that Iowa Speedway sells with their, they have those special menus that they put out every year, and then to see all the displays from the manufacturers and from the sponsors. And I'm kind of excited. I don't know why I'm so excited to see the Monster Energy girls this year, but that's going to be fun for us to go and see. But there is just so much to do at Iowa Speedway. And then you go and watch the race, and usually they're quick. It's a 7/8 mile race, so it's over in about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. It's such an experience that you got to start. You just got to listen to us and go once, and you'll be hooked.
It's good racing, too.
It is.
It's not, a Kevin Harvick at Atlanta or a Truex at Charlotte. It is good racing. And
usually, even when the Cup guys show up, the Xfinity guys are able to stay right there with them, and it's a good couple of cars battle.
Well, what's neat about it is when the Cup guys show up, they're usually somewhere else, so somebody else usually qualifies the car for them, and then they end up starting in the back and come through the field, and that's fun to watch. You want, Kyle Busch going to start in the back. I don't care whether you like him or not. Watch him go through the traffic. It's interesting.
It's a lot of fun to watch, and it's really a work of art to watch these guys work the field. And get your race radios and tune into Kyle's radio, because if somebody's in his way and they won't move, he's on that spotter saying, get him out of my way.
I'll give you one more chance.
Yeah. All right, we got to take a break. We'll come back in turn number 3. We're going to sit down with Kris Krug, announcer at Knoxville Raceway, and we'll talk about the 2017 season for the sprint car capital of the world. We'll be back here on the front stretch.
There is no such thing as an off-season at Joe's Karting. No matter how cold it is outside or how much snow is on the ground, you'll always be warm and dry inside at Joe's Karting, the Metro's largest indoor karting track. Located in Council Bluffs on 23rd Avenue next to AMC Theater. Find Joe's Karting on Facebook or head to joeskarting.com for hours, pricing, and a schedule of booked parties. That's joeskarting.com. Karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's Karting today and find out what all your friends already know.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch, heading into turn number 3, and it's time to talk Knoxville Raceway to get set for the 2017 race season. The schedule's been out for quite a while. You can get your tickets in advance right now for their bigger shows, the Late Model Nationals, the 410 Nationals. You can buy them in advance online at knoxvilleraceway.com, and then just click on schedule. Scroll down. August 9th, the first night of the 360 Nationals, the 57th annual Knoxville Nationals. For the 360s, tickets are on sale now all through the final night of the Late Model Nationals, which we're joined in the studio by a guy who I don't know how you managed to survive working at Knoxville Raceway while continuing to promote that the Late Model Nationals is your favorite event.
It's tough. I duck behind couches and chairs a lot.
I imagine
I'm very quiet about it.
I imagine you get things thrown at you. I mean,
Sometimes.
The fan base is probably bad enough, but then when you mix in Tony Bachhoven.
Hey, I'll tell you this though, from what I've been told, the Late Model Nationals is the fastest growing event at Knoxville. That I knew and observed over the past 4 years, but it's growing faster than the Knoxville Nationals did back in the day.
Wow.
Which it might be a little unfair because racing back then was a bit newer,
right.
So it took a while, but it's a growing event at Knoxville.
Well, I mean, you've got the best of the best there, and it's kind of a nice mix. We were talking with Anthony Ainsley a couple of weeks ago with the Beatrice Spring Nationals that it's a great mix because it's IMCA sanctioned. It's the beginning of the season. Everyone's got fresh cars. Mm-hmm. This one, it pays very well. It's kind of at the end of the season, so if you're wanting to put one last trophy on your mantle, that's a good one to do it at.
Absolutely, and also the fact that it's one race.
Yeah.
Or one date, I should say. The one weekend, that's it. And unlike Eldora and other tracks where you have like the Dream, the World, and then you have weekly racing for late models, we have literally one late model show a year.
Yeah.
That's it. One. That's it. All classes, one show.
I know there's people that are trying their best to change that, so we'll have to kind of wait and see how well that works out. But absolutely, that's a great show. Let's kick off with your guys' season or opener. April, it looks like 14th is practice night, and then your weekly points, April 15th. With 410s, 360s, and 305s.
Yes, it is. And I really have to thank everyone at Knoxville for doing that on a Friday night this year for practice. It makes it so much easier because when you have practice a week later or a week earlier than the actual opening date, you get like 10 cars.
Yeah.
And as the guy that needs to go ahead and get the sponsors down, get all this down, it makes the opening night so hectic. So that Friday night, you're going to have almost everyone there. Mm-hmm. It's going to be so nice. But yeah, April 15th is our opening night, full show. And on that date, that is our first of, I believe, 4 kids' nights where all students 18 and under get in free.
Oh, cool.
So show your ID, you're in free, you're good to go. So,
and by the way, general admission adult tickets for the weekly racing action are $15. Kids 13 to 19 get in for 10. Kids 12 and under get in for free
the whole year.
All year long.
Season. That does not include special events.
Yeah,
obviously that's our weekly racing events.
So, yeah, it's free for that. So that's great. That's kind of one of those things. I know that the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series is doing that. Kids 12 and under get in for free. Xfinity gets in for free, 12 and under. And the Cup Series, most tracks are doing $10 for kids to get into the Cup Series if they're 12 and under. And that's something that Rico Abreu talked to us, who's been a regular at Knoxville Raceway from time to time. He was the one that kind of came up with us, said we got to get the kids back in the sport. And it's so expensive. I've experienced it with my girlfriend that it is so expensive to take kids anywhere. Just a couple of weeks ago, I took my nephews to the Monster Truck Series. And I mean, it was $150 just for my girlfriend and I to get in, plus my nephews and a couple, the kids that we took with us. It's expensive to get them in there. And then you got to get food and everything. So it's great that these tracks are trying to be a little proactive and saying, let's offer a cheap alternative.
Yeah, and that's the best way to hit that younger demographic. That's why I think NASCAR went with the Monster as a primary sponsor this year. You got to get that younger demographic.
Absolutely. And
that's one way to hit it right there. Get them in for free. And obviously, it helps, like you mentioned, the wallets of the parents. But, you got to target it somehow. And that's a good place to start. And so we love having the kids out there. We think of it as a family-friendly atmosphere.
Absolutely.
Yes, we still sell beer, but there is a non-drinking section at our racetrack, a giant section. You've been to the Knoxville Raceway. You've seen how big our sections are. So, there is still a non-drinking section. It's our family section, so you can come out, bring the kids out. Don't have to worry about being around people drinking beer, and there is obviously no smoking anywhere in the facility. So
that's good. I'm an anti-smoker there. For your classes you're running weekly, 410s, 360s, and it's important to note these are not Race Saver 305s.
Oh, God, no.
These are open 305s.
These are open 305s. These are, as I say, I'm sorry, Stan, the real 305 race cars here. And it's going to be interesting to see how that goes for us this year because we have a lot of drivers making the jump up to the 360s coming up here starting in April. And that does include McKenna Hassey. She's done with 305s. I think she still has that engine. I'm not sure for 100%, but she is going to jump to the 360 class full time. And we might even see her here in Nebraska once in a while. I talked to her last season. She wants to kind of get some seat time in this engine. We might see her at Eagle once in a while, and we might see her I-80 once in a while. So it could be interesting to see how this goes for her. Also, if I'm not mistaken, last year's points champion or last year's runner-up is moving up to 360s as well. That's Devin Klein in the White Lightning Motorsports number 5. He's moving up as well, which will make it a lot of fun for me to call races because him and his other owner, Jamie Ball, have the exact same car. I mean,
good.
Identical. So it's going to be a great night to call races for that. Can't wait. So,
what's your over/under for first time you call the wrong car for those two concerned?
Practice night of hot laps.
So not very long at all.
No, I'll get it wrong. I mean, they're identical cars.
It's
only thing missing is the J on Jamie, and I think Devin. I don't think he has anything at all.
And by that, J's probably 6 inches tall.
4 inches tall.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So on the opposite side of Knoxville Raceway, while you're in the announcer's booth, which is probably 150 yards away.
Yeah, that's close.
Going at how fast they going along the backstretch?
Hit maybe 90.
Okay,
100.
how can you possibly miss that?
Right.
Chris, come on now.
Right. Right. My bad.
Again, opening weekend, Friday, April 14th is practice night, and it's free for the grandstands, although pits are $10 to get in. And then April 15th, that Saturday night, PellaMotors.com kicks off the Knoxville Championship Cup Series, 410s, 360s, 305s. You guys have a consistent schedule, April 22nd, 29th, May, all through May, of Saturday night racing. And then your first kind of adding more to the show that I could see, correct me if I'm wrong, is the USAC AMSOIL non-wing national sprint cars plus your weekly racing action.
Well, it depends on what you mean by adding more to the show. I mean, if you mean alternative classes, yeah, it's our first one. But if you want to add more to the show, we do have Dollar Beer Night May 6th.
Oh,
Busch Lights.
So clear my schedule.
Yes, Busch Lights are $1 a can.
What's
Unlimited.
the chances? What's the chances of getting dollar beer nights for Angry Orchard or Sam Adams?
Not a chance.
Because I will single-handedly raise Knoxville Raceway's stock.
We already have the cheapest beer I've ever seen for any any sporting event ever in the history of mankind. It's ridiculous. So, I want to say it's like $3 for a tall boy.
Wow.
I think. I could be wrong. I think it's like I can't drink during the races.
Well, now you saw the picture of Eldora's concession stands.
Yeah, from last year.
I don't know if Tony had anything to do with that, but it was actual reasonably priced food.
Yeah.
Now I just wonder what they charge for the beer. So
$2.50 for a cheeseburger.
Right.
Yeah,
that's
not
nice to
$7
see.
for a bite of a burger.
You guys are kind of doing that with the
we've
alcoholic
always been.
beverages.
Oh, and our food is well priced. So we always make sure.
I agree.
Like we said, it's a fan-friendly event. We try a family-friendly event as well. So we try and get the family out there involved.
I'm not out there for the weekly racing nights. Are there vendors outside like there are for the 360, the 410 Nationals, and the late models?
No, not to that extent. No,
Okay.
we do have Bob's Racing things, and we do have
Pizza.
our souvenir stand. We have Pizza Hut, but they're part of the racetrack pretty much. So
Yeah, that. By the way, that is just pure torture for a fat kid. For some reason, I always get tickets right underneath the Pizza Hut booth.
Yeah.
And I just sit
Smell
there
it.
and it's
Bring it in.
Yes, it's heaven for me because I'm watching racing, I'm drinking a beer, but then again it's torture because I'm trying to not eat as much pizza, and to sit there and not be able to eat pizza is just, I mean, it's torture.
It's bad. I love Pizza Hut. It's great stuff. I'm personally an old Chicago guy, but
okay.
Pizza Hut's pretty good. And of course, I'm a Casey's guy, but Casey's is literally across the street from the racetrack. So intermission, go across the street, just slice and come back if you want. It's literally right there. We've had tires end up in the parking lot of Casey's before. So
Donnie Schatz almost ended up in the parking lot. Well, he said parking lot of Dingus.
Dingus, right? Yeah.
During the 410 Nationals,
we do have Dollar Beer Night on May 6th, and the first nights of the major events. That does include August 3rd, the first night of 360 Nationals, and then the World of Outlaws opening night we have on Friday night, the June 3rd or June 9th event, we have Dollar Beer as well. And the opening night of Late Model Nationals, we have Dollar Beer night as well. So kind of the bigger events, kind of nice to see that opening night, kind of get things kicked off a little bit there and have that Dollar Beer night. But yeah, as you mentioned, that first kind of big-time event of the season is the USAC AMSOIL Non-Wing National Sprint Car Series coming in June 3rd. First non-wing race there in a long time. It will be my personal first ever non-wing race, and I've been told by Tony and Mike Roberts, our infield announcer, it is some of the greatest racing you'll ever see. I mean, I've never experienced it. I can't wait for it. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to hand the mic to Tony and let him call the action because I cannot tell cars by their gas tank. So I have to have a wing on it. I mean, I know the weekly guys by their gas tank, but like as far as touring guys go, not my thing. But I'm pretty excited for that one. It's going to be a fun night. That one again on June 3rd.
I'm trying to look at the I-80 Speedway schedule because I think you're going to have the chance of getting exposed to the USAC Wingless Series sooner than you think.
Oh, okay. So, I-80's first, correct?
June 2nd,
June 2nd. So we're going to go June 2nd to June 3rd. So Friday and Friday.
Wow.
Hey, for Friday and Saturday. There we go. That June 3rd event, though, understand, though, for those that love their 410 racing, that is our 410 show for the night. There is no winged 410 show that night.
Okay.
It's just 360s, 305s, and the USAC series that come into town. So
again, that's June 3rd. Then on June 9th, Dollar Beer Night, along with the World of Outlaw Craftsman Car Series. And then June 10th, World of Outlaws back for a 2-night show. So it's a 2-night show, June 9th, June 10th. Then you're back to weekly racing action on the 17th, and for a while there through the middle of June and into July, you guys get quite a few points nights. How many points nights do you guys have in total? Is it looks like it's about 18.
Oh man, it's around there, 18 or 19 points nights. It's a lot of racing. I mean, it doesn't seem like it, but it really is. There's so much that goes on the entire season, and
unfortunately, you got to factor in a couple of the R night words. So usually,
surprisingly, we only had like 2 or 3 last year.
Really?
I was blown away.
Wow.
Like, I could not believe it. So yeah, it was surprising, and luckily there were no nights where I drove out there. We got rained out and came back, so that was nice. So
yeah, because that's a 2.5
hour trip for me every Saturday night, but it's well worth it. You mentioned though that. Tickets are on sale now for Knoxville Raceway. You can go on KnoxvilleRaceway.com, get your single tickets for the major events, or also your season ticket passes are available for $315. That does include all weekly shows, and also includes the USAC show, World of Outlaws, the Capitani Classic, and the 360 Nationals. That, however, does not include the 410 or Lucas show. So kind of a different package there. But yeah, you're saving a lot of money doing that by getting your season package as opposed to buying every single week of tickets, because the Outlaw show itself is $40.
Wow.
So yeah, for one night and the $40 for the next night. So you're saving a lot of money going in that route with it.
The big kickoff, August 9th, the 360 Nationals, one of my favorites, just because I always kind of like to go to the smaller shows. I mean, the 410s is obviously the big daddy of it all. It's the prestigious event. It's where the stands are packed, not only the front stretch, but also onto the back stretch. All that area in the back is packed. The parking lots and the pits are packed. There's tons of vendors. The 410s is where to be. But if you like a little bit more of a calm atmosphere as far as fans are concerned, the 360s is where you're at, and there's just as good of action. That's a kind of a growing event too, to where it's only been around for, I think they said 57th annual. Arnold's
the 360 Nationals?
Yeah,
less than 30 years. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was
new. It used to be its own separate entity back in June, and they brought it in together.
27th. There we go.
They brought it in together. It used to be the 360 Nationals in June. Then August was the 410 Nationals, but they brought it all together, make it one giant week, and bring it in together, make it Southern Iowa Sprint Car Week. So to bring those two together, but it's going to be an emotional year this year for the hardcore racing fans that love that place. And it's going to be such an emotional year. We lost, not only Capitani a couple of weeks ago, but we lost also with the driver side of things, the owner side of things, Gil Sonner. Gil, that 47 car it's a legendary car in sprint car racing, and Sonner won the 94 track title with Dan Lasowski as a driver. I think it was last year before was his 50th consecutive running of the Knoxville Nationals.
Wow.
So it's been incredible to have that car there. I would imagine it's still going to be there this year. They're going to attempt to run it. He had Jeff Swindell in the car this year. But, I mean, the list of drivers he had from Danny Lasowski, Darren Pittman, Johnny Herrera, Jack Hottenshield, Kenny Jacobs, Sammy Swindell, Matt Morrill, and Terry McCarl all drove that car over those years. So it's unbelievable what he's done for sprint car racing. He passed away earlier this year, and, of course, you talked to Tony already, but Ralph Capitani passed away, the man that pretty much built that place, one of the greatest promoters in all of sports, period. I don't care about just racing, but all of sports, period. Really understood that it's important to build on slow and steady progress instead of all rapid at one point in time. So those two passing away, it's going to be a really emotional year this year at that track, but it's going to be another great year too.
So the big one. Okay, that's a glorious 2 weeks for you for the Knoxville Nationals.
It's fun.
Kicks off with the 360 Nationals. It's kind of a nice little way to get introduced into it. The car counts at about 120 cars, if I'm not mistaken.
We had like 110 last year, I think.
Okay. And then, so that kind of gets you a little bit of a warm-up for the next weekend, which is then your big one, the 410 Nationals. And that's some of the biggest names that are out there, not only from the United States, also Australia, Canada, New Zealand, all sorts of countries.
The world of sprint car racing around the country shuts down because they know there's no point in running a weekly show. There is one track out in Nebraska that runs a Saturday night show for some reason. I'm not sure why, but it's no big deal. It's their own. You got to make money. I get it, but anyway, it's the best of the best. I mean, it's our Super Bowl of dirt track racing. It really is, and it's growing now. I know there were some times where the attendance was kind of down a little bit here, but it's growing. It's getting back up there again. MAV TV was out the past 2 years with a delayed broadcast, had their whole crew out there. But yeah, to get this thing back on track to where it was back in the 80s, back in the 90s, it's getting there steadily.
You're absolutely right with I think the racing action has a lot to do with it. And if there's anything that I saw last year between Schatz and Johnson's battle, I mean, holy cow, that was amazing. And I think that will add another couple of % into the grandstands.
I told Mike Roberts, as far as I was concerned, that my 4 years of being there, that was the greatest sprint car A feature I've ever seen in my entire life. And I told him, I know there's a lot that you've seen before here and all that. I'm sure it probably isn't up there. He's like, no, that's top two. It's like, that's how good it was. And Mike Roberts and Tony, they've seen everything for sprint car racing. Everything. So for them to say that as well, it's like, how good that race was. It was unbelievable.
Prior to that, it was the Danny Lasowski and Donnie Schatz battle at I-80 Speedway for the World of Outlaws for me, because I haven't had a lot of sprint car experience and a lot of racing experience.
That was a great one.
That was awesome. Because I'm a little sentimental with it being an I-80, I think that'll remain number one. But that battle between for last year's 410 Nationals with Schatz, that'll be 1B.
Yeah, it was good. I think the stakes that were up for grabs there, or make that one a bit higher on my list too. But for as far as the Jason Johnson race goes, but yeah, it was incredible. It was great. So, and of course our Knoxville National tickets are on sale now too, so you can grab those at KnoxvilleRaceway.com under the events tab on the website.
And then to wrap up the season, you have the 14th, 15th, and 16th of September. It's a 3-day event, the 14th annual Lucas Oil Late Model Nationals presented by Casey's General Stores. And then Thursday, maybe I will come out early because that's Dollar Beer Night again.
It's Dollar Beer Night again. It's again Dollar Busch Lights, all you can drink. So please drink responsibly, of course. But,
will Scott Bloomquist show up on time?
Hey, it was his New Year's resolution not to be late to a single race this year. In the first race out of the gate, he's like 20 minutes late, and he gets a provisional. So, but there are, I do like how some of these sanctioning bodies are making it a rule now where if you show up late, there is no provisional. It's not happening anymore. So
I love that your fellow competitors get to vote on if you get to race or not.
And they all love Scott too, so they'll let him race. Yeah, they're
all
Scott.
big fans of Scott Bloomquist.
Yeah, September 14th, 15th, and 16th, the 14th annual Lucas Oil Late Model Knoxville Nationals, the fastest growing event at the Speedway. So it's a different event. The drivers love it. Speaking of Scott Bloomquist, this is his favorite racetrack. If you go on his website, it's right there. Favorite track, Knoxville, because he only gets one shot at it a year. It's wide open. The banking is perfect. He can go anywhere he wants on the racetrack, and they love it. It's wide open.
And he showed up on like the Friday afternoon last year, didn't he?
I think you're right. I don't think he was there Thursday night. I think he was late again. He showed up on Friday night.
Yeah. And because everyone was talking, where's Scott? Where's Scott? Where's Scott? So KnoxvilleRaceway.com, you get more information on that. Chris, always do enjoy it. I didn't get to give you grief in person, so I'll make sure to do it with the next couple of Knoxville Raceway regular interviews.
Sounds good.
We'll talk to you next time. We'll be back here on the Front Stretch.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100-plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4. On the Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Welcome back to it. Heading into turn number 4, brought to you by Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the Front Stretch. Get over to Quaker Steak and Lube today for the Cobalt 400 at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Coverage is on Fox and PRN for the radio fans, kicking off at 2 o'clock. Green flag set to wave at 2:30. That happens to be the same time that the picks are due. A little bit of confusion. Don't email me the picks. I mean, you can email them all away, but you have to log on to NASCARpoolsonline.com, log in under your username, and submit your picks. Today is also the final chance to get last-minute registration for this contest. We're going to close it off after today. Rick Havenridge of Wealth Partners is going to go ahead and tally up that fee and then write off the check, so that way the league is covered and no one's paying any fees. But today's the last opportunity for it today at Las Vegas.
I think I looked the other day. I think we've got 72 in there, I think.
Yeah, right about there. A good year for the contest. I think last year we started out with about 50. We had some attrition of about 15 to 20 people. This year we're starting off with 70, 75 people. So yeah, it's another good year for the contest, and just proof that the show is growing and that the people love the contest. I'm sitting back in the lower half. I mean, I've had 2 horrible weekends. I thought for sure Jimmy Johnson in Atlanta would be a lock. That didn't work out for me very well after Jimmy got his pit road speeding penalty. I thought
11 people that did.
I know.
And Kevin Harvick.
I could have taken anybody else. I took Keselowski last weekend at Daytona. Well, technically 2 weekends ago at Daytona, and he didn't work out very well for me either. So it's been a rough start to the season for me, but a long season yet to come, and I'll bounce back. I sure hope so. Right now, I think you and Chad are both whooping me in the contest, but I haven't had a real chance to look since I left.
I think I was tied with a handful, 7 or 8 people at like 17th after Daytona.
Including me. You and I were tied.
And
now I'm back down to 49th.
I was going to say I think I'm tied with about 5 people at 38th right now, but I'm a whole race behind somebody. Who's ever leading, I'm like a race behind them.
Yeah, I got to get that stuff printed off so we can talk a little bit more about it. But we only have a few minutes in turn number 4 since we kind of went long with Kris Krug and Jimmy Small. Remember, KnoxvilleRaceway.com for your season passes for the Sprint Car Capital of the World, and IowaSpeedway.com for the 7th mile asphalt track just down the road in Newton, Iowa. If you go to Kansas Speedway every year, you need to add Iowa Speedway to your list. They do a really good job of their races land off of a lot of the big races around here, so like we're not going to be stuck at Iowa, or excuse me, not necessarily stuck, but we're not going to be at I-80 Speedway for the Silver Dollar Nationals while Iowa's doing their big race. They do a really good job of working with that. And if you like what you see down at Kansas, you're going to love what you see at Iowa Speedway. It's the same racing, but in a smaller atmosphere.
Well, and not quite as big a crowd.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of things I've heard from some of the people that have ventured down to KC. Oh man, there is just so many people and the traffic's so terrible and stuff. Iowa Speedway's less people, but still almost the same. Mezzanine? What do you call it outside the
concourse?
Concourse. There you go.
Yep.
That's the word I was looking for. I know I walked out there a couple of the times. I don't go out there every year or every race I visit, but they've had the 5-on, 5-off contest deal with the lug nuts that you get to do, and they give away a prize for that. Chevy's always got a big display with their new cars, and they usually have an engine on a stand out there, like a 540 cubic inch, all aluminum, like 600 horsepower deal that they let rumble a little bit. Snap-on's got that 57 Chevy Nomad wagon that has wrenches made into A-frames, and everything on the car is made out of wrenches. It is totally awesome. Any mechanic needs to see that car, especially since you've helped pay for it with the Snap-on tool, man.
They usually have a racing simulator on hand, including a sprint car simulator that Knoxville Raceway brings up and usually has a tent there. So there's a lot that goes on over at Iowa Speedway. Let's talk about Las Vegas this weekend coming up. Dirk talked to us a little bit Las Vegas. Over the week, it was announced that Las Vegas had landed their second Cup date for 2018. They were going to be taking one of the dates away from New Hampshire. I'm kind of curious about this. Talk to us about the racing action that we can expect today.
Speedway Motors owns both of those tracks. They also own Bristol, Texas, Charlotte, Atlanta.
This
I'm
is
missing something.
And just to get you guys into a little bit of the politics, when we talk about, a road course should be in the playoffs, and that we feel like it should be Watkins Glen and Sonoma. The real tough thing that NASCAR has to deal with is that there are ownership groups that own all the tracks, and it's pretty much 2 ownership groups. Then NASCAR also owns Iowa Speedway. And just to bring it home to what we're talking about with Iowa Speedway, the toughest thing for Iowa Speedway to get a race is that somebody on that circuit has to lose a race. And to take it away from an ISC track, International Speedway Corporation,
which is a division of NASCAR, not technically, but it is. I mean, it's owned by the same board of directors and the same stockholders.
The best way for Iowa Speedway to get a race is that ISC is going to have to buy that track or to take over ownership from NASCAR. And what you're kind of talking about there is that when we say politics, that's not necessarily a negative thing, but you have to give something in order to get something, and that can be very difficult when you're talking about billions of dollars in revenue, tax revenue, local support. I mean, for Indianapolis Motor Speedway to give up their race, even though all the fans are saying we're kind of tired of the Brickyard, it's not the best race for a stock car. It's just not in. It just isn't working. That's a recent study from an agency in Indianapolis showed that the NASCAR Cup weekends brings in over $500 million in tax revenue for that area. That's a huge loss, even if the racing isn't that great.
Exactly. And, everybody, like we were just talking, you want a road course in the chase. I'd personally like to see a nice short track besides Martinsville. Let's move that Bristol race back in, the second Bristol race back in that 10 weeks and have 2 short tracks out of 10 races. Those tracks could trade their own dates with each other. That they could do.
And that's what we're kind of hearing with Charlotte Motor Speedway is that instead of having the oval race, they're going to adjust and they're going to run on their road course. So Charlotte is still keeping the track, and the fans are getting the road course they've been asking for. Exactly.
And, I mean, it's a lot more fans because you see a lot of NASCAR fans say they don't like the road course racing. But it has become so competitive.
Mm-hmm.
15, 20 years ago, you had 2 NASCAR drivers or 3 NASCAR guys, regular weekly drivers that could race a road course and be interesting, and then they brought in all the ringers. You see a couple ringers now, but with the way NASCAR's set up, it's just not designed to do that. You got 36 cars that are going to be in the field.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be if you had 43 cars and they brought in 10 ringers, so there were 10 weekly guys that didn't make the show.
Yeah. Well, and road course ringers just aren't what they used to be. All the regular guys have gotten so good at road coursing that when they come in and say, oh, Boris Said's landed a ride for Watkins Glen, I'm sitting there thinking, well, big deal. He's still going to finish outside the top 20 because everybody in the top 20 is becoming really good at being road course racers.
Well, yeah, and that's because Boris has taught them, or they've gone to the Skip Barber School. There's several driving schools set up for the road courses, and these guys, have helped them out. Then you had the guys that drove a lot of road courses, like A.J. Allmendinger, et cetera.
Sam Hornish.
Yeah, and they would help these other drivers. The drivers on driving will help each other because they know they've got to race against that guy. They don't want him to be dangerous.
Right.
They're not going to give you the setup, and main reason is they can't because they don't know it. That's the engineers and the crew chief working on all that stuff. They're not giving away any tips. But the drivers will help each other with entry points and everything else.
It's just like Jack Dover talked about with Cody Ledger and some of the other drivers he's worked with. There's a fine line between giving them enough information to make sure your competition is competitive and keeping you on your toes and giving them too much information to where they're beating you.
Exactly.
All right, let's get back on track here a little bit and let's talk about the race today at Las Vegas. Again, action kicking off at about 2:30. That's when the picks are due on Fox and PRN. This time last year, Brad Keselowski got the win, followed by Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, and Austin Dillon. That was your top 5. Stage 1 set at lap 80. Stage 2 set at lap 160. And then the checkered flag waves scheduled to wave at 267. Talk about Las Vegas and the track. Is it anything compared to Atlanta, or are we going to a completely different type of track?
Well, it's another 1.5 miles, but it doesn't have the 3-stage front straightaway that Charlotte, Atlanta, and Texas all have. It's probably closer to Kansas, which is almost a D-shaped, like a small Michigan, or a big Newton, Iowa. Newton, Iowa is a D-shaped track, just like Richmond is. They're very similar. So that's probably what it's closest to. Having worked some night races there back in the truck series, it's real neat because it is right next to Nellis Air Force Base, and they know the fans are in the stands. I mean, I was there at a truck race that had 60,000 people, which is the biggest truck crowd I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
And they ran drills that night over at the Air Force Base. So we're standing on pit road watching stealth bombers and B-2 bombers and stuff take off, and those big old look like Roman candles hanging up and going up in the sky down the back straight. It was really cool.
Yeah.
It was a nice show.
For the contest today, again, picks are due at 2:30. We've got a little bit of time. Let's talk about some of the news that came out at this week for NASCAR. A.J. Allmendinger penalized hard for having 3 loose lug nuts. Also, Kyle Busch was penalized in his number 18 Xfinity car for Joe Gibbs Racing being too low in the front end, and we kind of talked a little bit about that. That could be anything from the tire pressure in the back of the car was too much to something legitimate.
Tire pressure in the front too low.
That ended up being a level 1 penalty, which resulted in officially, the team is going to be credited with a win, but that win will not be eligible to get them into any postseason advantages. So it's what's called an encumbered win. There's some of the great things that come with winning a race are going to be removed from Kyle Busch and that 18 team.
Xfinity Series race anyway, he's not eligible for their playoffs, so that part really doesn't make a difference.
It does make a difference on the championship owner points in the owner standings for the wins there. That won't count towards wins for him, for Joe Gibbs as the registered car owner.
And when they made it a level 1 penalty, I still haven't seen a figure on how low it was. Was it 1/8 of an inch, an inch? It must have been very low for them to hit them this hard. It definitely wasn't something with tire pressure, because tire pressure on those radial racing tires, you might get 1/4 of an inch tops, But in race car world, 1/4 of an inch is a long way. But he must have been, he missed by a bunch. It's not just a couple pieces of paper or the thickness of a dime. He missed by a bunch to get that big a penalty.
Officially, he was crew chief Scott Graves was fined $10,000 and suspended from the next NASCAR Xfinity Series points-paying event. The team has been assessed a loss of 10 NASCAR Championship owner points. So driver points, again, it doesn't matter because, like you said, he didn't earn any driver points that day because he's not eligible for Xfinity Series points. So that they were only assessed the owner points. But had that been an Xfinity regular, he would have been assessed 10 driver points also. There was a couple of things that happened on Facebook that kind of irked me, but I said, no, I'm not gonna get into it. But just calling him cheater and all this stuff, and I wanted to fire back and say, okay, but Kyle wasn't the one that set that car. There's certain things that you can, as an intelligent person, you can look at the penalty and say that was probably a mistake. And I think this was probably just a mistake.
No, I wish I had, like I was just talking about the thickness. How far off was he? Mm-hmm. I wish I had that number because then I could probably dial in on exactly what they did. I mean, there's things they do at different tracks. And as NASCAR caught on to them, they've changed them. Like they used to cut notches in the shocks. Mm-hmm. On the back of cars at the super speedways, Daytona and Talladega, to keep the spoiler out of the air. So when the car finally did squat, it would catch and stay there. Remember Tommy Ackerman told us about his story where they couldn't get him to unhook, and they were really worried that the car might explode when they went back through tech and hurt somebody leaned over the car. But, so now NASCAR gives them their shocks at Daytona, gives them the carburetor at Daytona because guys were cheating with carburetors too much. So I just like to know what that figure was.
Yeah,
but
maybe you can call one of your guys and find out. But that's something that NASCAR doesn't like to release. It's kind of a covert operation
usually
thing.
The crew chief says,
right?
We were off by 0.007 of an inch, or we were off by this. So.
But NASCAR doesn't like to release that because they have their specs that you must be within, and they don't want to be releasing what teams were doing like they've done in the past because I think they want to keep some of that stuff still a little bit of a mystery so that other teams don't know where the gray areas are. It keeps that gray area larger rather than kind of narrowing it in and say, if you play on this side of the gray area, you'll be okay. So NASCAR doesn't release a lot of that stuff. We talked about how you shared the stories 100 times about how when a team gets caught, a lot of times NASCAR would lay that illegal piece out for teams to see.
Yeah, NASCAR confiscates it. It doesn't matter what. If it's a fuel cell, they take the fuel cell out of the vehicle. I mean, I've seen some really odd things. I saw a tungsten little catch can for overflow from the radiator that weighed 70 pounds because it was made out of heavy metal. It was ballast for the they have to put this in the back of the truck with a long hose running to it, and they said, well, that's a real good place to put some weight. So then when the overflow doesn't hold any overflow, it becomes dangerous because it's not doing what it was supposed to do. But
so the point of that is that NASCAR doesn't like to release this stuff. We'd love to find out, so that way you've got a better idea of what's going on as a tech guy. But NASCAR doesn't like to release it because they're starting to get to the point where they don't like to let teams know where other people got caught, because then it keeps other teams in a better true form of racing and legal.
Another thing that was all over Facebook was all these pit road speeding penalties. Mm-hmm. Now, NASCAR works their speeding penalty. They pick a mile an hour, and I must say it's usually around 45 to 55 miles an hour is what most of these pit roads are. Some of the real tight pit roads like Dover, I think they drop down to 35.
Yeah.
But they go with NASCAR gives the teams 2 gear ratios to run, and they're very close together. They'll be like a 410 and a 415 or whatever the numbers happen to be. They're just very small percentage point, what amounts to like 200 RPM. Mm-hmm. One's going to work a little better on the bottom groove. One's going to work better on the top groove. One's going to get a little less gas mileage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the team's got to figure all that out when they make their choices. All the transmissions in final drive have to be 1-to-1. So they can't mess with the gearing there at all. Mm-hmm. And when they do these speedometers and figure out these miles an hour, a lot of it's done with an RPM figure. If you are in second gear and you run this transmission, you need to run 4,500 RPM and you'll be at 50 miles an hour, or whatever the numbers happen to work out to be. And so they're looking at their tack. And when NASCAR first started this, the teams, again, they're trying to drive off a tack. They were missing by a couple mile an hour. So NASCAR says, we will give you a 5 mile an hour leeway.
Mm-hmm.
So now the teams have figured out with the math, okay, well, that's another 300 RPM on the tack, so I'm going to drive here.
If the speed limit's 50, NASCAR allows teams 55.
And so now the teams are just figuring, no, the speed limit's 50 or 55, and that's where we're going to go because we know we can do 54.5 miles an hour or 55.
Right.
And that's when everybody's pushing the envelope now, and that's where they start going over just a little bit.
They're also having issues because NASCAR doubled a lot of the timing lines on pit road last year to stop these guys from having the advantage of speeding into their box and then speeding out of it, because with sitting in that box, so the timing loop is when it takes the car this amount of time to go from timing loop 2 to timing loop 3, they do that mathematical equation and they figure up he was going 56 miles an hour. But if your pit box is in the middle of the timing loops, then they were able to speed in and then speed out because you spent your 15 seconds in your pit box.
Correct.
So they were able to do that. So NASCAR doubled the timing lines, and teams really had a lot of problems with it as the year went on, because now instead of being only 8 to 10 timing loops, there's now 17 to 20 timing loops. And so NASCAR is able to get a much more precise speed over the entire distance.
Well, a couple of years ago when your Jimmy Johnsons and your Matt Kenseth and Brad Keselowski and some of these guys figured out that, hey, we're going to be in that pit stall for that 15 seconds. So when I get to this stripe, I'm going to hammer it.
Gun it.
And come in. That became a very dangerous situation because maybe a car's pulling out of their pit stall, and they don't realize this guy's going to nail a gas to get into his real quick. And they were having a lot more banging around on pit road. If you've noticed, that has really dropped significantly.
Yeah.
There's very little banging on pit road anymore.
All right, we got to wrap it up for today. We do appreciate Kris Krug of Knoxville Raceway and Jimmy Small of Iowa Speedway joining us. Thank you to all of you for playing along in the Pick'ems contest presented by Rick Havenridge of Wealth Partners. It will roll on today at Las Vegas. Again, picks are due at 2:30. Preview for next weekend's show, we have Ben Schaller, the late model series champion, the late model champion of Iowa. Oh boy, I am just roughing this up. Next weekend, we have Ben Schaller joining us. He is the super late model champion at Iowa Speedway for the NASCAR.
I-80 Speedway, not Iowa Speedway there, Dan, oh boy.
Coming up next weekend, we have Ben Schaller, driver of the number 98, the super late model champion at I-80 Speedway in the NASCAR division. Also working on getting Stan Caesar in here to preview the Eagle Raceway schedule and the Sprint Series of Nebraska schedule.
And as everybody needs to know, we are also trying to hook up and set up another Crewman for the Day contest for Kansas Speedway, because believe it or not, they loved our promo.
They did.
They actually asked us to do it again.
That's a little bit of prideful. When
people
say,
our heads are so big in the studio today.
Nobody listens to your show. Nobody pays attention. Nobody does this. Well, we have 75 people that participate in a contest. Then we have another 120 people that join our 5-week contest. And we have NASCAR tracks that are requesting us to do promotions again. Yeah, you're right. Nobody pays attention. You're absolutely right. We'll do it all again next weekend. This has been The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590.
The official watering hole of The Front Stretch has you covered any day of the week with the best wings, great burgers, and amazing steaks. Each weekday from 4 to 6 is happy hour, featuring $1 off draft and well drinks plus $4 Luberitas. Mondays are kids' night. Tuesdays are all-you-can-eat wings for $12.95, and the lube even delivers to the Council Bluffs area. Like Quaker Steak and Lube Council Bluffs on Facebook for a full list of weekly events.
Get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Mid-America Drive, Council Bluffs.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs is the high-octane excitement you've been looking for. It's the Metro's largest indoor track with eco-friendly, low-emission engines. You can enjoy fast-paced road course racing just across the river at Joe's Karting, located near Bass Pro in the Mid-America Center on 23rd Avenue and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. Open Monday to Thursday, 2 to 10, Fridays until 11, Saturdays 11 to 11, and Sundays noon to 8.
This has been the Front Stretch Radio Show, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. To contact Dan or Dirk, find them on Facebook at The Front Stretch or email them at frontstretch590@gmail.com. If you missed any part of today's show or want to hear a previous show, subscribe to the Joe's Karting YouTube page, where you can find almost every Front Stretch show.